All right, continuing with fear. So, as I said, before we started this journey together, I am taking the Dunes journey with you. And I am going to be transparent and share some things that I've gone through in my life concerning fear. So, a few years ago, and I'm going to be, you're going to find out some of my stuff. Okay, so a few years ago, not a few, well, I went into menopause early. I went into menopause. And for those of you who are younger, who are taking this journey, you're like, what's menopause? Menopause is when your cycle stops. And when your cycle stops, it stops because your body stops producing certain hormones. And every woman gets to that age where you no longer have your cycle. So you won't have your period anymore, and your body stops producing certain hormones, not just estrogen and progesterone, which you hear about, but also collagen. Different things happen, and it is not fun. There are women who maybe tell you, oh, it's a natural part of life and it's beautiful. I don't feel that way. It wasn't a beautiful journey for me. It definitely tests you. You definitely come of age. You definitely find out different things about yourself and about what you value. But it was not easy for me. And it took a bit of getting used to and a bit of finding different things that helped work for my body to find a state of balance for my body. And every woman has a different journey when it comes to menopause, but usually, normally, menopause happens in your late 40s, early 50s. For me, it happened at age 41, which was a bit devastating for me, and it changed everything, a lot of things in my life. And I was hormones were everywhere, and one of the things it did was change my complexion. For years, or when I was younger, my girlfriends used to tease me. They called me peaches and cream because my skin was so even and healthy looking. And we coined this term, me and my girlfriends say, when a woman is younger, we'd be like, oh, she still has her dew, which meant, the morning dew. So we called it the dew. And so the day my dew left was when I was 41. So what happened, because I am African American, sometimes we can get, and I know this is not just African Americans, but um, every group gets this, but I've noticed it more in my community, and maybe just because I'm African American, so I'm in the African American community. But we can get melasma, and melasma is like splotches, darkening of the skin. So I started to get melasma, and then just the texture of my skin changed, and I tried to fix it. And when I was trying different products, I didn't know what to do. Everything, like I said, was happening all at once. I immediately, what I felt like I went to sleep and woke up and gained 35 pounds, which is because your body just completely changes the way it metabolizes fat as well. So I gained weight, my face was changing, I was getting this melasma, I was trying to heal my skin, and trying to heal my skin, I just made it worse because I was using products that were not really great for African American skin. And so it was having a negative effect, which was making the problem worse. And so the texture of my skin was changing, and I was having all of these problems. And so I began to feel very bad about myself because, anybody knows who has gone through an alternate skin issue, maybe acne or anything like that, your face is the first thing people see. And so it's the way you present yourself to the world. And I began to be very ashamed about my skin because my skin looked so bad. And so I'd always been a person who, of course, wore makeup. I have on makeup now, but it wasn't something that I wore often or a lot of. In fact, if I had to run an errand, like run out to the grocery store or to the CVS pharmacy to grab something, I was the kind of chick who put on a baseball cap, some sweats, and run out and do it. I never covered or put anything on my face. Makeup was for when I was going out or, a special event. That's what makeup was for. But now that my skin was all discolored and damaged, I began putting on a lot of makeup to hide it. And so I began to be in fear. I developed a belief So the belief went something like this. I woke up, I looked at my face, and to me, I looked ugly. And that's what I would tell myself over and like, oh my God, you look so bad. People, oh God, this is such a bad look. And so I would say these thoughts over and over again in my mind. So then I began to cover it up. Okay, put concealer, this and that. And so I was covering up my face all the time with all of this stuff just to run an errand, just to go outside, and it began to be such a prison I put myself in, because we have FaceTime, right? People are calling. So they would call, and my heart, if I didn't have the makeup on to cover myself, now my heart's beating, oh God, they're going to see me. I have to, do all of this stuff just in order to be seen. And I would do this to friends and family too, because I was so embarrassed and ashamed about how bad I looked. And to be honest, it was bad. It was pretty bad. My girlfriends now, they tell me, we don't want to say anything, Erin, but yeah, it was pretty bad. So I went through a season where it was really bad, and it only got that bad because I was trying so hard to fix it, and then I made it worse. So like I said, I would put on all this concealer and stuff, trying to hide all the time. So I began to hide. I began to hide because I feared. What was the fear? That somebody would see, notice my skin, and think that I looked ugly or bad, which were these thoughts that I was having about myself. So I was thinking people would agree. Now, my girlfriends saw my skin. They saw me naked and unashamed. They saw, and they were like, yeah, but they were talking about the things that had happened. They weren't talking about me. Yes, it was bad. Yes, I had damaged it more by what I was doing. But it was never that, okay, that doesn't look great right now, and it's going to heal, and we're going to stand by you, and we're going to trust you, and girl, you're going to get it back, and it's going to be fine. That's one thing, and that's what my friends were doing. No one ever said, Erin, you are not pretty. Erin, your value is less now because you're going through this skin thing. I put that on myself. I felt less than. I felt ugly. I began to sink and hide myself because I didn't feel good about myself. And so it began this whole fear sort of journey. And this went on for a while because skin stuff takes a while to heal. Now, I will, full disclosure, my skin isn't all healed yet. Now I'm able to wear makeup and you won't notice it. Before, makeup couldn't even really hide it. My skin, let's say if 100% is fully healed, I'm at like 80% now, 80, 85. So, but I'm telling you about when I was at 0%. It was bad. And I said things to myself that I wouldn't let anybody else say to me. And I know somebody, you're listening to me, you know what that thing is, because say it's your weight. You might say things to yourself, oh, I'm dumpy, I'm this, I'm that. And you repeat these things to yourself about this fear you have about your body not being acceptable or beautiful or pretty. Your body is beautiful and pretty because you're healthy. My skin was damaged for a season, but I wasn't damaged. My skin was. And so it was going to heal. And no, we go through seasons where it's not a good look, but that did not mean I did not have value. But you could not have told me that in that season. And that season, I was just hurting because I felt so bad about myself. And I hid. And there's a book called Power versus Force. And it talks about how our emotions, there were scientists that studied that the impact our emotions have on our health, right? So because we are literally energy, we're molecules, and that we are all energy, the energy that we feel, each emotion has energy, can affect our health. So they discovered that the lowest energy, or the lowest emotion, the emotion you can feel that would have the greatest effect on your health and cause the most negative energy, is shame. And so what happened when I was in that season is I began to feel ashamed. I was ashamed of myself. And so my fear turned into shame. I was always hiding. I didn't want you to see my skin. I didn't want to answer the phone. I had to put on makeup before I went out. As you can see, I'm even, because that's how the feeling, it makes you shrink less than who you are. So I was shrinking because I felt so bad. And so I felt so bad, and that feeling became shame. And what they say about shame is that it causes, and this is crazy to read, but science studied this and found this out, that it causes your cells to heal slower. Shame, the feeling of shame literally causes our body to heal at a slower rate. So I felt so bad about myself. The things that were happening that I needed to heal, because I was in so much shame, I was even making slower. So menopause was slowing me down and the shame was slowing me down. So it took me a journey. It was a journey of healing. And I really think in many ways, God slowed the healing down because he needed me to understand that my value didn't come from my skin. It came from my inherent value because he said, daughter, I love you and you are wonderfully and beautifully made. And his truth, and that's the truth I apply to my life as a Christian, his truth is what matters. But I had let my own standard and the false standard of the world make me feel that I was less than. So I walked around with all this shame and all this torment, always covering myself, always hiding, always going the extra step. There were things that I didn't even do. Like, I'm an outdoor girl. I'm from the Midwest. I like to go camping. I like to be outside. And I didn't do that as much because, oh, I can't go camping because then I'll wake up and then I'll have to put the make, and then how, and it went on and on and on. See what I mean? A prison. I was in prison. I could have simply told my family knew I'm going through stuff with my skin. So y'all, it's just gonna look how it is for a minute. Okay, we love you. And that would have been all that was said. And I could have been out and about doing things, but I was so busy trying to hide myself, so busy trying to cover what I was ashamed of. I lost out on a lot of life because of that. So what I did is what I talked about before. I let my fear make me develop a belief system. So when we're challenging or coming against our fears, it's hard because we are also coming against a belief system that we've created in our minds. Remember, I just talked about that. Our fear makes us say things that we repeat over and over again until we believe them. And then a belief is basically a faith system. Now your fear is your faith. You've put your faith in that which you fear. And so that's why it's sometimes so hard to overcome these fears, because we've made them a belief system. We've said these things or, repeated it to ourselves so many times that it's now become what we believe. And so it is time to combat that. It is time to fight that. And that's what you are going to do this week. You're not going to fight it or not going to combat it this week. This week, you are going to read the first Revelation. You are going to answer you're going to read the first Revelation, you're going to read the first Revelation commentary, and you're going to answer the first Revelation journal questions. And a part of those journal questions help you to identify, or it asks you blatantly, what is your biggest fear? Now, some of you, and I hope a lot of you have seen the webinar or have seen the testimonials. If you haven't, go ahead and check those out, because Shreya and Celeste, these are two people who have read the Dunes and taken the Dunes journey with me. They identified their fears. And sometimes the symptom that you're doing, me putting on makeup, that wasn't the fear. The fear was that people will find me unattractive. People will think of me what I've been thinking of myself. That was the fear. And the fear was rejection. That was my fear. I was actually, so the root of my fear, which we will get to in week 2, we're not there yet. Now you're just about to identify the fear, but I'm just going to share with you, because I'm sharing with you this testimonial of my skin. My root fear was being rejected. People thinking of me what I had begun to think of myself. And so that happens when we find out what our fear is. We think that our fear is the action that we're doing. That's not usually the fear. The action I was doing was hiding. Hiding is not the fear. The fear was I didn't feel good about myself. The root was I was afraid of rejection. And we'll talk more about the root of your fear next week. This week, it's about you reading the first Revelation, the first Revelation commentary, answering those first Revelation journal questions, and identifying what your fear is. So I cannot wait to talk to you next week. You will hear from me this week, midweek. You're going to get some midweek inspiration. As I said, every week you'll get a video. Then in the middle of the week, you'll get some midweek inspiration, okay, as you go on this journey. So I'm excited to hear from you. I want to hear from you in our private Live More, Carry Less Facebook group. So as you are diving in and identifying those fears, let me know what's coming up from you. Do a post, let other people know who are on the first revelation with you, or who've already been there, done that, and on the fifth revelation can tell you, oh yeah, I remember when I felt that way, when I identified that fear. Either way, you're going to be inspired or you're going to get support, right? So make sure you go to that group, Live More, Carry Less, Bootcamp for the Soul. It is a private Facebook group just for us, people who are taking this journey, and begin to share your heart. Begin to tell, hey, this week I started and I thought my fear was this, but wow, when I looked at it, it popped up, it was actually this. And I think that's going to happen for a lot of you. You may think your fear is one thing, or you may have a lot of fears. I kind of don't think so. A lot of times our fears manifest a lot of different things, but it's inherently just one fear, right? That can happen too. Like if you fear lack, if you have a fear of lack, then that might manifest itself in different ways. If you have a fear of rejection, that might manifest itself in different ways. The things that manifest aren't the fear, it's the root cause. But right now, your only job is to read and identify what you believe your fear is. And if it still comes up where you feel like you have 3 or 4 fears, then just decide the fear that you identify that you want to work on this time as we go through this journey together, okay? All right, I will see you in the midweek for your inspiration. And more importantly than that, I will see you in our private Live More, Carry Less Facebook group so we can talk about these things that are coming up for us as we go along this journey. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm so excited that we are starting this revelation together and pulling up those things so we can dig them out, look at them, assess them, and overcome them. This week, you're just identifying though. Just identify. All right. See you next week.